Thank God
for recess or for lunch or something like that.
Still.
Everyone like, mate, just get off that shit. But then obviously now one of the premier talents in Richmond, you know, like, we're probably touted to be the next captain. So
it's interesting how it
clicks.
works, hey? Fear of failure. I think that was my biggest issue. I didn't want to fail. So I was like, oh, well, if I work hard, I won't fail.
Yeah.
I hope that was my mindset at the time anyway, which probably, again, wasn't ideal because then probably led me to some not so great places. But, you know, you got to learn.
But it wasn't a paralyzing fear of failure.
Well, I suppose in some parts of my life it was. Like, I used to get really silly about what I would and wouldn't eat, like to a point where like I'd go out to dinner with people and be like, oh, I just can't eat that. So I just get a salad all the time. And it was kind of,
really?
Looking back now, I was like, that was really like, you still have to live your life. And I probably went too far to a point where I was like, nope, not doing this, can't go out, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm not really living. And this was when I was like 19, 20. And I was like, okay,
wow.
I still have to. And I was like, this is not going to take away from training, but I was like, I probably have to like stop being so regimented and actually live a little bit, which is something I probably started doing last year during COVID, had some other stuff going on. And I was like, okay, I can't keep living this life where I'm like, nope, this, and then missing out on other things. So, but that was a bit of a learning curve.
Yeah. It's part of being an athlete.
Right. Yeah. Life smacked me in the face a little bit, but it helped.
The fear of failure, does it drive you to get like, drives you out of bed? Does it? Or does it?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, definitely. Like that's why, you know, at least when I had to work early in the morning, I'd get up early, go to the gym before uni and stuff like that. Or then in the AFL system, it was, that fear of not being good enough. So that's why I probably work as hard as I do, because I'm like, you know, I know, well, it can end like it does.
Yes.
So, and, you know, training as hard as I didn't actually prevent that in the end. But
it's funny, isn't it?
You don't know that. But, you know, I know in myself that I did everything I could to get the best out of myself. Obviously, my body let me down a little bit, but that was through no fault of effort. But, yeah, it was definitely that a fear of being like, oh, I don't want to not be good enough, so I have to do all this extra stuff. And, you know, I wasn't afraid to ask questions on how I could get better, which hopefully most people would agree with. Like, I'm happy for people to tell me what I need to do to get better because I want to be better. And again, that fear of not being good enough was what's driven that probably for at least the last 6-7 years. So
yeah, right. So all the way.
Yeah, I think so. Probably since I finished under 18s, when I was kind of like, okay, like I'm good at this level, but I was like, and I've worked hard to get to this level and be good at that level. But I was like, oh, now I got to play with like adults, you know, at the time, and fully grown women who've been doing this a long time. So I was like, oh, well, I want to prove to everyone that I'm good enough, which is probably, something else that's kind of driven me. Like I just wanted to be good enough for myself, but then for other people. And then I suppose the last year or so, I'm like, okay, those other people will know either way. Like that won't define me, whether I'm good enough for those people, which is something I used to get stuck on and internally still struggle a lot with now. Being like, well, I have to prove to so-and-so that I'm worth this, or if they've helped me, I'm like, oh, I don't want to let them down. Whereas had a few conversations recently, it's like the people that care about you won't care if you know, whatever happens, whatever the outcome is, they'll just appreciate the journey, so to speak, which is something that I've always struggled with, because I'm like, oh, so outcome driven. And it's like, well, end of the day, like I've still learned a lot, even though the outcome probably didn't turn out the way that I wanted it to. And the people that have helped me, and probably some of my best friends now, and couldn't have got where I've gotten without them. But yeah, so much of it was like, oh, I don't want to let them down. And people are like, who are you letting down? I was like, I don't know. Silly. Well, it seems silly now, but I suppose at the time, that's why. Is it
does it fit that fear? Is it a burden? Do you feel like it's almost?
I feel like at times it was. Yeah, definitely. And I think it then played in my mindset and confidence a little bit when I was at AFL level. Like, you know, worked so hard to get there, and I know I'm really good at waffle level, but it's just that next step that I was so worried about, like being good enough for people, that it probably then like actually restricted my output a little bit, like on the field. Obviously it's pretty hard when you're injured to do that, but like I've probably learned that a lot through like with my knee and stuff. And then some things that happened last year, I was like, oh, okay, like can't keep doing this. And it's like a conversation I had with Ryan in that a little while ago, because obviously stuff with the Eagles kind of finished up, and I was like really disappointed that I'd let people that helped me along the way down. And he was like, you haven't let anyone down, and anyone that would think that wasn't really trying to help you anyway. So I was like, oh, okay, that's a good way to think about it. So,
well, it was also interesting way that you thought the other way. Like you thought that you were letting other people down, you know?
And that seems silly to me, because I've kind of Well, up till even probably like last week, that was something I was struggling with, but I think I've had a good long think about it internally. I'm like, okay, those people would have helped me anyway because they cared. So, but yeah, it's a little internal conflict, but I think looking back now, I'm like, okay, like would have been good if I could have realized that maybe a little bit earlier, but we're here now. So, do
you think that's a little bit of like a selflessness thing? Like you're right about other people rather than really
so.
yourself?
Yeah, I think so. And maybe a little bit of like not self-protection, but a little bit of self-doubt probably as well. A bit, because obviously I think lots of people would probably say that, particularly as female athletes, like, all your body image stuff and expectation and things like that. So I think that internally was my problem. And then like I just wanted other people to come along the journey with me. But then the more people that I brought along, I was like, oh, that's more people I'm going to let down if something doesn't go right. But yeah, looking back now, I'm like, I haven't let anyone down, hopefully. But I know like the people that I'm really close to and hopefully they know how much I appreciate what they've helped me with. I'm like, okay, they would have helped me and they would have known the potential of what would have happened. It doesn't work out for everybody. So, and all those people would know that.
For sure. All those people would have had times in their life where they would have had the same, experienced similar things and we would like to think that most people are understanding towards that fact.
Yeah, and I think so.
They follow you because of what you do and they like you because they like you, not because
you're a footballer.
Exactly right.
Yeah. So.
And you can't really let that dictate everything.
No, and I think that's what I used to do. I'm a footballer. And I was like, no. And people are like, there's more to you than that. I'm like, oh, yeah. Which I already knew, but deep down I was like, no, I just want to play footy. And I was like, okay. And now I'm kind of point like, there's more to life than footy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And football, as much as it's taken a few things away from me, it's probably given me a lot as well. And I'm like, okay, appreciate that. But then it's like, you can't just be Beatrice the footballer, like, which I can't. And now I'm like, okay, yeah, that doesn't define me anymore, I don't think, or I hope not.
Do you pick up other things? Like, have you picked up other things now outside of food? Like, you do other things that are not just football related?
Yeah, well, I try
or coaching.
to. Yeah, but everything seems to be tied back to footy. But
yeah,
I think for me now, it's like, it's not just about like me pursuing me playing footy. Now I'm definitely like, okay, I've had some not so great things happen to me in the footy space, particularly the last like 10 months or so. I'm like, okay, make sure that doesn't happen to any of my athletes that I'm coaching and ensure that they have the best sort of support and care around them so that they don't have to go through the stuff that I went through. So again, painful lesson for me, but good in a way that I can then share that with other people, I think.
You're sitting in a unique kind of experience because you're kind of giving back your own experiences to the athletes you coach as well.
Yeah, which I think is quite